everybody. I'm Cassidy, one of your Indianapolis Colts cheerleaders, and you're watching the Believe in Colts podcast.
Welcome back to Believe in Colts. I am Lawrence Owen. With me today is very special guest, former NFL team doctor, head team doctor, if I am remembering correctly, 17 years with the Chargers, Dr. David Chao. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me. And that's a first. Done a lot of different media things. Never been introduced by a cheerleader before. So, although she was introducing the show, not me. So,
well, there's a lot of different introductions to different shows, and I went with a cheerleader. I thought, you know what, might as well use someone who already is there, using the spirit for the team. Met up with the cheerleaders down in training camp, asked if one of them would like to do the introduction. They said absolutely. So I was very happy that she decided to come on and do that intro for us. So very interesting. I agree.
And let me tell you, you're in Indianapolis. The Indy's been my second home in a lot of ways. Between the combines and recheck combines, and for a while there, the Chargers and Colts had a little mini rivalry. I remember one time I was in Indianapolis 5 times in a year: preseason game, regular season game, or something else, and then the 2 combine visits. And you mentioned a little bit before we got on about my profile header picture is actually, if you look at it again, it's with Phillip Rivers. But look at it again. You tell me where that's at. If you can click on it there.
I probably, hold on. Now that you mention it, I might
take a look at that at ProFootballDoc.
I'll have to look it up real fast, but I've got an idea. Yeah, that does say Indianapolis on the banner back there, doesn't it?
Oh, forget the banner. Look at the ceiling.
Yeah. Well, that's the RCA Dome.
That was the last game in the RCA Dome.
Oh, wow.
Colts fans, don't kill me. That was Phillip Rivers walking off with his knee injury. Billy Wallach came in, won that game. It was the quietest I've ever heard in NFL stadium. Let me tell you, the vibe in that stadium was, there's no question Peyton Manning's going to come back and win this game. The fans were never in doubt. They weren't even worried. There wasn't even tension. Everyone was so confident in Peyton. And when we won that game, I'm telling you, I've never been in an NFL stadium. It was pin drop quiet, that from 132 to the other on our sideline, you could hear everyone's voice. It was eerie. But that was actually the last game at the RCA Dome.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a memory.
It makes me old.
Absolutely. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting on your favorite casino and card games, available right to play from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Yeah, so you talk about with combines and stuff being an Indy. Just before we get into talking about Shaquille Leonard and Jonathan Taylor and those boys, what's it like during the combine with doctors, I'm assuming, because there's a lot of people doing a lot of different stuff, and there's probably quite a bit of worry about, these young kids who are out here trying to impress somebody to overexert themselves and stuff, right?
Yeah, we're on the physical side, not on the talent evaluation side. So you get the physical before you go out and do the quote underwear Olympics. But the term that we used to call it among the doctors, I would joke that it was Groundhog Day. Like every day you wake up and it was the same day. And every year you come in, it was the same thing. You were in a room with the same number of teams, and it was a little bit of a meat market. I mean, 330 guys in what used to be 3 days. Now they moved it to 4 days. So you'd see 70, 80 guys a day. So basically you just go and next. And is it a nameless? In some ways, yeah. I mean, it's RB23. Then you give them a name in the school, and then you go into the injuries, but you're concentrating on the injuries and the medical history. And literally we would be done, and it'd be like the GM would ask, how's so-and-so? I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know. Let me go look it up on the notes on the sheet and on the computer. It wouldn't be able to tell you who from who, because as you can imagine, examining 70, 80 people a day, it's just a blur. And the next day you get up and do it again. So that's how we call it Groundhog Day. We're inside in a room and just continually working and doing the evaluations.
Absolutely. And with that, building off of that right there, you was talking about, you couldn't really pinpoint a single person. Was there ever a guy that really sticks out in your mind that just like for some reason really stuck out to everybody else when he walked in for his examination? Or is it just only always like that where it was just?
Well, look, I mean, when I say that Groundhog Day, you don't remember. Clearly, you remember certain people that walk in. I mean, since we're talking Colts, I remember distinctly when Peyton Manning came in through the combines and he looked at him, etc. I remember, Michael Vick when he came through in the combines. I remember a lot of people that came through the quote headliners, etc. But it was a big blur of a lot of different names and a lot of different people.
Okay, all right. I can only imagine. As hard as like a lot of these GMs and scouts and stuff work, throughout the season, they're constantly looking at the talent on tapes and stuff. Doctors have got a lot of stuff on their plate as well, right? Could you explain to me exactly? I don't know, like through an NFL year with a team doctor, what are some of the more high and low points that a team doctor goes throughout an NFL season, you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can do the job without being somewhat interested in the game or being a fan. I will say now that first of all, there's no team in San Diego, and I no longer do this, and I'm doing the analysis. Well, I'm still practicing. I'm looking over my shoulder as my first surgery patient gets ready to go here. But there's nothing like it, and you played sports. To me, the two very special moments, it's going to be a little bit corny. The National Anthem, of course, when you're on the sideline, that always the nerves and the butterfly feeling, and because you really do feel part of the team. And the other one that I thought was special was actually the Lord's Prayer in the locker room. And I don't know why I started doing this, and I don't mean to be sacrilegious at all, but instead of head down, I actually would always personally be saying the Lord's Prayer along, but I would look around the room at the people, and the people not only to quote try and impugn some protection of injury, but just football was about the people. So I thought that was special, listening to the Lord's Prayer or saying it with everybody and looking around the room. And there was one other player, I won't say who, I don't want to throw him under the bus in case he doesn't want to be known that way, but we used to meet eyes in the sense that we were the only two that would look around the room. Everyone else had their heads down. But a national anthem, is great. I mean, obviously winning a game is a special feeling or whatever, this, that, the other, because you do feel like you're part of the team kind of thing. But, one of our proudest moments, there was look, you don't hear about doctors on the front end. You only hear about doctors when, something isn't right. There's all these injuries. Mm-hmm. And one of our proudest moments, I think it was 1999, and the Chargers were not very good at the time. And USA Today had a poll, and it was not a very scientific poll. It was like, what do you think of your medical staff and this, that, the other? And it included athletic trainers. So they were a very important part of everything that we did. It was a very simple question. Do you think they do a good job or not? Essentially something like that. And there were 8 teams that seemed to be in a little higher tier. And the other 7 teams were all playoff teams. And we were like 1 in 15. And so I always looked at that as, that was a pretty good year. If you could be 1 in 15 and be looked upon favorably from a medical perspective. But one of the things I do now all the time is, on media, I said, like, and this is true, Lawrence, like fans always think their team's the most injured. And what about that medical staff and this, that, the other? But I literally have said on more than one occasion to my GM when we're sitting there and he'd be like, oh gosh, injuries, this, that, the other, and bemoaning all this stuff and kind of give me a hard time. You call everybody coach. So I'd say, coach, and this would be to the GM in our meeting, coach, I'm Paul Revere. I'm not the British. Okay. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not doing the invading. I'm just telling you the invasion is coming. Okay. And how it's coming. And to me, you should judge medical staffs unless the medical staff has control of exactly. We have input, but not control of who to select and who to sign. And we have input, but not control on prehab protocols. But we do have control of rehab protocols. So if you're getting a guy back slowly, assuming you know the severity of the injury, I think you can blame the medical staff. But sometimes you just don't know the severity of the injury, and so you blame the medical staff. It's really the severity of the injury. But the other stuff, I think, is very hard. There are stats out there about average games lost, and this staff must not be very good. They're not the ones hurting them. If you're saying they're slow to get back, that's fine. But how do you compare apples to apples in terms of different injuries, in terms of timelines?
Yeah. Does the medical staff, they have a direct influence on the dietary supplements that are given, like the meals and stuff like that as well?
Well, most teams are now going to a director of sports performance, and that usually is an athletic trainer, and that person is in charge. They do consult with medical. They probably would not have consulted with me because I was the head team physician, but orthopedist. They may indeed have consulted with the primary care doctor, or they would have been through me and I would say, no, talk to this guy who knows more about diet than I do, bonehead, orthopedist, etc. But I sort of was the ombudsman for the medical side with the head athletic trainer.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and move on. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit. I know that a lot of you that are watching this right now are more interested in, the upcoming season for the Indianapolis Colts relies heavily on the return of multiple different players from the Indianapolis Colts coming back from injury. As Dr. Chao just explained earlier, every team goes through it. This year, the Colts have multiple players that are returning. Two are very important, one on each side of the ball. We're going to start on the offense with Jonathan Taylor, who went out in the last few weeks of the season. He dealt with a high ankle sprain all year long. They finally put him on IR. We're waiting on his return. Could you explain a little bit about the high ankle sprain, the recovery process, and how that could affect that injury and the recovery process and all that, how that could actually affect his return to the field, his performance on the field, if there is any kind of effect?
Lawrence, you know better than I do. It's hard to follow all 32 teams.
Exactly.
What's he done this offseason? Has he been around or done much?
He's walked around a little bit. I haven't seen him do any kind of working out yet. During the OTAs and mini camp, I've seen him out there with a hoodie. Both these players, same way, right?
Well, first of all, high ankle sprain, different degrees. And one of the things, so what we do at Sports Injury Central, so on Twitter, ProFootballDoc, but we're the only site for true injury analysis as opposed to injury reporting. So we don't look at what a team says or a player says or a media outlet says. We look at actual game footage and we interpret what's happening. You talk high ankle sprain. Look, in the playoffs against Jacksonville, we said Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. But don't worry, he'll return and finish the game, and he did. Mm-hmm. And then after the game, it was released he had a high ankle sprain, and everyone freaked out and said, oh, that's 4 to 6 weeks. He's going to miss the rest of the playoffs. And we said, based on the type of game that he plays, the right back ankle, this is how he'll modify, change arm angles, and he'll still be effective, but he's not going to 5 or 7 step drop and push the ball down the field, more underneath stuff, and that's what he did. So that's what we do, injury analysis, not injury reporting. Now, certainly, we actually were the first to say high ankle sprain on Patrick Mahomes, but it's different people. It is much harder for a running back like Jonathan Taylor to play through the high ankle sprain than Patrick Mahomes as quarterback.
He did
by video. We didn't think it was that a grade 3. We didn't think it was terrible during the season. we would be surprised if this turned into a Michael Thomas New Orleans Saints situation where the high ankle sprain got a lot worse and perhaps off-season surgery, and we just don't know about it, and that cost Michael Thomas the season. We would be surprised. We're relatively optimistic. We do something called the 6-score Sports Injury Central score, and for fantasy drafters, we have Jonathan Taylor rated high in the low 90s in terms of his health coming into the season. So even though he has not participated a lot, we're not seeing it as a big issue right now. Although we could only analyze what we see. I'd love to see footage of him running around, and then we could say, is he all there or not there in terms of what's going on? But it's very individual and different for everyone, but we're relatively optimistic on Jonathan Taylor. We don't make a lot of the late season shutdown. High ankle sprains can linger. And, with the record and what's happening, look, you got a lot of things that happen to get on the football field. You have to be medically cleared. You have to feel like you're ready to go, and the team need you to go. So it's possible that he was cleared to go. He wanted to play, but the team said, why risk it? Shut him down. It's our record. And I do like your new coach, Shane Steichen. I know him a little bit. I saw him this spring in Phoenix a little bit through the owners' meetings. He's a smart guy. I think you got a good coach there.
Okay. Let's say I know that Jonathan Taylor had surgery on his ankle in January by Dr. Robert Anderson. So does that usually take a while, surgery like that to come back from? Is a return table something that he might be able to come back by, say, week 1 or something?
I would hope and expect so. Look, the surgery, the details of the surgery were never released. The hope and expectation, it was more of a scope. The fact that he didn't have it immediately, perhaps to us, indicates that it wasn't structural, more of a cleanup. And so some relative optimism on Jonathan Taylor there.
Awesome. Before I move on to Shaquille Leonard, whose surgery to me seems a little bit more serious, and a lot of people are really curious about this, I wanted to bring up the fact that when players are injured on a team and they're asked about these injuries by media and stuff, coaches tend to shy away from getting any kind of specifics, and a lot of fans get upset about this. Could you explain why maybe coaches don't get into details about a player's injury to media and fans and stuff? I tried to explain. I think it has a lot to do with not trying to give away, too much to other teams and stuff. I mean, if hey, this guy's got a foot injury, he's had surgery on, this. The players on the other team know this, they might be able to take advantage of that. But I mean, I don't know 100%. Would you know?
Yeah, well, every team's a little bit different. Of course, you have New England that says nothing and has an edict that says, don't talk about your injuries. I mean, their edict is don't talk about your injuries and don't talk about another player. You can only talk about yourself. And Belichick, all he says is, here's the injury report, listing, hide the bacon with 17 people questionable, which is legal, right? Because if there's a 99% chance they're playing or a 1% chance they're playing, that's questionable, right?
Yeah.
So it's legal. So in general, people don't want to talk about their injuries, but even if they do, it's really fairly usually optimistic. I've been lucky enough to go to some Super Bowls with media credentials, and I remember one time sitting down with Mitchell Schwartz when the Chiefs were in a Super Bowl, right tackle. And I know his brother, who does a lot of media, Jeff Schwartz. So I sat down because nobody was there on the team session at his table. So I wasn't taking away any other true media's time, right? I sat down and introduced myself, and I said, I'm Dr. David Chao, ProFootballDoc. This is what I do, so that they're not surprised. He goes, I know who you are. I'm like, uh-oh. That sounds ominous, like you're not going to like me, because I did a lot of talking about him this year. I said, well, should I get up and leave? I mean, probably. He goes, no. He goes, I actually like what you do. was like, okay. He goes, look, I'm not allowed to, and I can't tell people the extent of my injuries, but you can. In other words, the team for a while was saying, he's close, he's around the corner, he's around the corner. And when you say that for 3-4 weeks, fans start saying, why isn't he playing? The reality was he wasn't playing for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And I was able to say that. Now, he couldn't like my tweet saying that, right? But he felt like it gave the truth of the other side. And this is what I mean by injury analysis, not injury reporting. And so he actually, and I've talked to some of the players, they actually like it in some ways because it gives their side of it, because everyone's so quiet about injuries.
Yes, they definitely are. And one thing that the Indianapolis Colts have been quiet about is the back surgery that Shaquille Leonard had. Weird situation where I guess they thought it was his foot or ankle or something. Like last year, they went and had surgery on that. He was out for most of the season, came back, played a few series, left, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, we got to do some surgery on some discs in his back or something like that. He's going to be out the rest of the season. And now he's out there walking around. Now he's, again, seems to be in bright mood, walking around, running around, doing stuff. But there's a lot of question by Colts fans whether he's going to be able to play this year. How good is he going to be? You know, is this something that's going to limit his mobility, which is what he was most known for, you know, being out there at the linebacker position on the field. So I'm just curious if you have any answers to some of those questions.
Look, to tell your listeners and fans, I have not examined Shaquille Leonard. So do I have firm answers? No. And if I had examined Shaquille Leonard, I wouldn't be able to tell you based on HIPAA and privacy laws. But what we deal in is insider knowledge, not insider information. So our insider knowledge based on injuries, if you look at Sports Injury Central, sicscore.com is the website, sicscore.com. Last year, we panned Shaq Leonard coming into the season because of his herniated disc surgery. We panned J.J. Watt in Houston years ago coming back from that surgery because core muscle is very important, stability. Different player, J.J. Watt taking on linemen, Shaq Leonard sideline to sideline. But we pan that. Look, for you and I to do our currently daily jobs, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, we can do most of it, but we're not doing the same things these guys are. So what happened to J.J. Watt? He had a second back surgery very quickly. What happened to Shaq Leonard? A second low back surgery. I'm not being critical at all of Shaq Leonard or J.J. Watt. If anything, complimentary that they tried to come back quickly. I am not at all being critical of the medical staff saying they did something wrong or the surgery went wrong or it brought him back too quickly. Look, when you are a team physician in the NFL and the medical staff, it's like driving, once again, an Indy reference, an Indy car, okay? All of us can go 225 miles an hour down the straightaway. All of us can negotiate a curve at Indy, but how fast? The key to NFL sports medicine is to know when the straightaway is ending and know when the turn is ending to accelerate out of the turn. That's how you win races. Now, if you don't do that driving in any car, you're not competitive. If you don't do that in NFL sports medicine and not push the envelope in with players, you're not going to have a competitive team. So do sometimes things not go smoothly? Yes, but you have to be pushing. And that's what they were doing with Shaq Leonard. And it didn't work out in a second back surgery. But a second back surgery is a bigger deal. We're more guarded on Shaq Leonard and his ability than Jonathan Taylor for this season.
Okay. All right. Completely understandable. Well, one real quick question. I know that you're not with that anymore, but obviously the NFL moved a 17-game season. Okay. And we're like, what in the world? Do you think doctors were Well, I mean, you would have a personal preference, opposed or against or pro for the 17-game season. Do you think that was a good thing or bad?
I guarantee you they didn't have a vote.
I know, but
okay. Now I'll close with this thought, if you don't mind, because I see they're ready for me there.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, but here's what I've been saying forever. Okay, I've been saying forever. You should, instead of adding 17 games, you should make the regular season, shorten the preseason, make the regular season 18 weeks and have 2 bye weeks. I get it. 2 bye weeks were tried many years ago, but it was a different era where you rooted more for the Colts. Now you root for the Colts, but also your fantasy team. See, nowadays, do you really know who's playing on Monday night? No, you just turn on the game. Right? Because it'll be somebody. Someone will have Jonathan Taylor and you'll have Jordan Love or something, right? And so you just turn on the game. 20 some years ago, people used to ask me when I was doing the Chargers, what time do they play this week? Is it a road game at 10 a.m. West Coast time, or is it 1 p.m.? Nowadays in San Diego, you just turn on the TV at 10 a.m. and see what's out there, right? So because there's 8, we watch from a quote war room, and we can't watch all the games. We put 10 TV screens up, right, sometimes for that early time slot. What would 18 games do? People like the bye week. It helps player health. And guess what? An extra 18th week would give you a full slate of Sunday games, a Sunday night game, a Monday night game, Thursday night game. TV is what drives the revenue and not increase injury risk. But I think what the NFL is going to do, and that's where it makes sense, right? And to get more football product, but less, because it would even add a challenge to fantasy football, an extra bye week, right? But in any case, what I think is going to happen, they added 17. What's going to happen is when they add 18, they're going to go to 20 weeks and 2 buys.
And then give the 2 buys. Okay.
Right? I mean, so I think that's what the NFL will do. But anyway, on that note, thank you so much for the time. I hate to run, but I see them ready for me.
Oh, thank you so much for taking time before your surgery. It was very, very pleasant having you on, and have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was Dr. David Chao coming in right before surgery. Thank you so much to coming in and talking just about the doctor's side of things for team physicians. And then, of course, much other stuff, giving us a little bit of insight. He's very optimistic on Jonathan Taylor coming back on time, not just on time, but back to his previous form. And they're a little bit more guarded about Shaquille Leonard. So keep that in mind as the season gets closer. Again, don't forget, hit the like button, leave a comment or a review if you're listening to this on an audio podcast. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. This was Believe in Colts. And as usual, go Colts.
Do you believe?